Welcome to the BizGrowMojo podcast, the podcast where we get into real talk about business ownership, growth, marketing, learning lessons, and advice with real business owners. Here's your host, Ryan Amon. Now, let's get down to business.
I'm pumped to get this rolling. Let's go. What if I told you that the secret to closing 5-figure web design contracts wasn't in your portfolio, but in doing something most freelancers refuse to do? Today's guest, Marc McDougall, went from struggling freelancer to consistently landing software company clients by completely flipping the traditional sales process on its head. He'll share his unconventional cold email tactics that get CMOs replying, "This is the coolest outreach I've ever seen," why he talks most prospects out of hiring him, and the 3-year YouTube strategy that finally paid off with over $100,000 in client work. If you're looking for new ways to keep your pipeline full, this episode is packed with tactics you can use today. Let's dive in. Well, hey, Marc, appreciate you coming onto the podcast and reaching out to be a part of it. And I'm really looking forward to our conversation here. I think you had some really good topics that you pitched me, and I think you reached out, and I'm looking forward to getting into those. But before we get too deep into that, maybe we could start just by having you tell the audience a little bit about who you are and what your business does.
Yeah, of course. Well, my name's Marc McDougall, and basically I've been doing freelance web design for the last 13 years. So I run a very small design agency of my own. And by agency, I mean it's mostly me. I have a little cat running around back here that gives me emotional support, and occasionally
mascot.
Yeah, little mascot.
Right on. It's good to have a fellow digital marketer on the podcast. I'm looking forward to getting into some topics here with you. It's a little bit different, pace than some of the guests I've had, and it should be exciting. Should be good.
Yeah, I'm fully expecting to come away with 10 or 12 tidbits of my own here to implement. So, looking forward to it.
Well, what inspired you to kind of get into doing what you do now?
Long story short, I was employed in the corporate world for about 2 years, and it was all right. It was good money, but the work I was doing felt a little bit, it felt like no one was ever getting any true value from what I was doing. It was mostly internal projects that were dashboards and stuff like that. I didn't like it. So pivoted completely and started doing freelance Android development, and realized pretty quickly no one needed that. So I was just like, okay, everyone has a website. I'll figure out how to do that and sell that instead. And then I did that, and then have slowly pivoted towards doing mostly full service stuff for software companies these days over time. But yeah, I was just kind of sitting in a void of meaning in my life and wanted to do something more impactful. I feel like that's the typical entrepreneur story, right? Like I want to make something of myself, and somehow able to pay the bills for 13 years now. So it shocks me every year that I'm able to keep going.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, it's good to hear that you've been able to get established and get things going and keep them going. What type of websites do you develop? Do you develop on a specific platform or?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what the needs of the client are, but the client needs are usually these days WordPress or Framer. Those are the tech stacks I typically work in. But most clients, when they come to me, we'll have a conversation about what they need. Ironically, and maybe we can get into this a little bit later, most people that work with me, I end up talking them out of hiring me because most small business websites are like horribly unprofitable for the business owner, But yeah, long story short, it's mostly like really high touch, custom bespoke themes in WordPress and Framer.
Okay. And you work with a lot of SaaS companies?
A lot of software companies. Yeah, that's I've just kind of drifted towards that industry because software companies in particular, as you know, like their website is their lifeblood. It's really an important asset to them. A lot of small business owners could be using their website as an asset, but it's mostly just brochureware. They feel like they have to have one. So very different sell.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with that concept. I mean, there's just so many, especially local service businesses that underutilize their website. They look at it like a digital business card, and it's like you could turn that into a lead generating asset if you applied some things to it and built out your search engine optimization and your content and did all these things. But yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from there. So how was your business profitable? Like, what are the things in your business that you find make you be able to keep paying the bills and keep moving forward day to day?
Yeah, well, the more profitable stuff is kind of the high leverage consulting stuff. So, for example, if a software company is having difficulty with, they're experiencing some kind of business problem. Usually that's there's people churning out of their product or there's no one signing up from their paid ad campaigns through the landing page. Um, Oftentimes, they could solve it by just hiring someone or an agency to come in and like rebuild the whole thing, or you could hire someone like me to just audit it and tell them what to do. So those are the most profitable projects for me, where I come in and I'm just like spending a week looking at everything and then saying, hey, here's what you should do. And then the implementation projects beyond that are where, okay, here's what you should do, and I can help you do it, and here's the price and all that. Those are like much more rare, but they're the high revenue ones, but low profit, and the audits themselves are mostly the profitable ones. I hope that answered your question. I don't know if you're asking about revenue or profit there.
No, that's good. Do you find that you kind of gravitate toward liking to do the audit and consulting, or do you find yourself liking to do the ongoing work and the implementation better, or do you not have a preference?
Yeah, I mean, it wanes and waxes based on which type of work I have coming in. I find if I'm doing lots of high level stuff, I tend to want to do the implementation stuff. And if I have lots of implementation work, it's a constant yin yang.
From one or the other?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure from being in the trenches, if you've got like 5 projects you're going at once, you think, man, I just want to like get some time to think about something and just look at someone's website for a couple of days and
Yeah.
think about it deeply. It's a very different type of deep work.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's good when you can kind of find that balance of, you know, not being so deep into the same thing for so long that you can get a little bit of, change things up a little bit and be able to keep the interest level there and not just feel like you're, 10 feet deep in the exact same thing, every day. That's one thing I love about what I do is just there's a lot of, I feel like the spectrum is wide of the things that I need to do for my clients doing search engine optimization, So I
Mm.
feel like there's a pretty broad spectrum of things that I can do. I don't get too bored on anything, and it's good to be able to find that. What were some of the early wins and breakthroughs in your business? Do you feel like that you really kind of helped you get established and you know, be able to tell yourself, okay, yeah, this is working for me?
Yeah. So, all right, I have an interesting one that um, maybe the listeners can relate to this. I feel like every entrepreneur has a couple of these stories where they're like, I'm a complete idiot. Why did I do this? It was a terrible idea. And then one day something works and you're like, oh, this
Maybe
is
not.
why you're supposed to do it, right? Well, I remember I was like really struggling backing, must have been 2015 or something, when I was like a couple of years into doing generic small business website design. And I'm like, man, it's just not working. And bank account was really dwindling. And I had a couple of 2 clients come in back to back, and I was experimenting with a completely new sales strategy, starting with discovery, paid discovery. Normally, prior to that, I was just doing like the standard, I guess, web design process where a client comes to you and you just kind of throw a proposal at them and then cross your fingers. And this time I was like, look, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try and do, I'm using air quotes here, the responsible thing and start with a paid discovery project first. And both of the prospects ended up signing with me, and I was shocked with that because they subsequently resulted in like pretty big 5-figure contracts, which
Interesting.
for me at the time was life changing because it meant not only was I no not going to be homeless, but I was able to actually like completely platform myself for success for the next like 5-6 years because I can then hire someone for marketing. I can take a step back and work on the business and not just be constantly desperately looking for work. So yeah, one of the big aha moments for me was like slow down. Try to, if you've got someone that seems relatively interested in what you're trying to do, a potential prospect, try to slow down and help
Hmm.
understand what they're trying to achieve. And oftentimes that's a really difficult process, and you should charge for that.
Yeah.
So paid discovery was like the first big aha moment for me, I would say. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, we used to do that a lot in the agency that I used to work for in the earlier days. We would do a paid audit where we would dive deep into everything that, was wrong with kind of their presence and what they were doing. And then we would take that into kind of a proposal from that and say, here's what we want to implement for you. And it seemed to work really well, but at some point we just kind of stopped doing that. I think there was more people in the industry that were kind of doing that part for free a little bit more, so we kind of geared away from it. But that's interesting. How did you typically line those up to continue doing that?
What do you mean? Like, what was are you asking what the specific process was for
Yeah,
closing?
I'm just curious how you would typically, line up those prospects to do those paid, audit projects.
Yeah, yeah. I guess there wasn't anything particularly magical about what I was doing. I think the the thing that I think was really working for me was really pushing back on the prescriptive parts of the project they were looking to do, and asking why a lot, almost to the point that they were really annoyed with it. I think that set me apart significantly, because most people that these prospects in particular that we're talking to were chomping at the bit to work with them. They were like, "Oh, come on, let's do this. It's $20,000." They're throwing over proposals, and I was the only person that was like, what if we just don't do this? Like,
Yeah.
why is this so important? Who cares? And doing that gives the prospect a little bit of space, I find, to relax, but then also they're getting a little taste of what it would be like to work with you. And that kind of frank honesty, non-self-serving honesty, is quite rare in the industry. And it seems like you uncovered this too when you were doing paid proposals, right? Everyone's chomping at the bit to just fire these things off for free. When someone says, "Hey, I'm not going to do that," prospects are like, it's kind of a pretty strong pattern break. What are you doing?
Absolutely.
Why not? You're not going to do this? That's very strange. So I don't know. Maybe that was the magic bullet for me. Who knows?
Yeah, no, that's interesting. What type of marketing have you found that's worked well in the past and still to this day that's kind of allowed you to continue lining these opportunities up?
There's a couple of things, and for listeners that might be hoping to reproduce some of this, I'm coming at this specifically from the angle of like a freelance designer. So I don't think this would necessarily work for like a pizza shop or something. But for me, you're still there. Okay. For me, the marketing channels that worked have been the online platforms that have ongoing clients come in. That's for like if you need something short term but maybe lower profit. Things like Upwork, Codable, TopTal,
Okay.
those spots. Cold email outreach has been surprisingly effective for me throughout my career, and still seems to be to this day. Every year that goes by, I keep thinking the cheesy tactics I use for email outreach are going to get less effective, but they don't. They still keep working somehow.
That's awesome.
And a little bit of referral marketing. So just really
Okay.
making sure that when you land a client, knocking their socks off completely, and then like helping them help you with referrals, making it super easy to send you new work. Um,
Yeah.
and I mean, we can go into any of these in detail. I don't want to derail the agenda here, but yeah, there's a lot of nuance there I can unpack as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely want to get more into the cold email when we get a little further into this for sure. That you caught my attention with that. Yeah, it's something I'm interested in. I've been experimenting with a little bit, and I think there's always been an opportunity there, and some people kind of just bypass that and think that it's not viable, and it surprises me as well that
Yeah.
it continues to be viable. I know people that have used it pretty effectively, and I have in the past in some different campaigns, and I'm experimenting with some more. So let's get deeper into that in a minute here, but let's
Sure.
talk a little bit more about your business and what role has your own website played in helping you get business, would you say?
Yeah, I would say, ironically, it plays quite a secondary role in my client acquisition funnel. And by that, I mean I'm not running paid ads to my portfolio. It just exists in the ether, and occasionally people find it if they're looking to work for me, and then it acts as like a
Kind of a trust builder.
precisely, yeah. It helps to move them through the funnel in a less quantitative way. I forgot to mention actually, recently YouTube has been really good for me in terms of closing new like first-hand clients, meaning not going through a platform or anything, just straight from social media. And there, my website's really useful because it helps to set the stage for my offer. But more or less, I think my website and really a lot of small business websites are just kind of there to validate that you're not some random fly by the night practitioner. You're a serious
Yeah.
dude. Yeah.
Yeah, it just kind of validates that, yeah, you're a real business and not just somebody that's going to disappear with their money.
Yep.
Yeah. Have you found any systems or tools that have, kind of helped you in your business and keep things running smoothly or automate things that have been really effective for you?
I use a little bit of automation for cold email follow-ups, specifically, never for the first email. And then like other than that, just generic scheduling stuff for YouTube and a lot of the editing I do for my YouTube videos. It used to take me like 30 hours to do a single video, which is just totally not practical if you want to live a normal human life
Right.
and also do a full week of freelance work. So I have a whole bunch of like AI stuff that will automatically cut out all the ums and ahs from the audio and stuff. Other than those two domains, I don't really use very much automation. I probably should, but I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. There's so many tools. It's like you can get buried in them and spend more time messing around with tools and actually getting anything done. It's hard to find that balance of like, am I using the tools that are actually helping me progress, or am I just getting bogged down with tools? There's just going to
Yep.
be, especially when it comes to AI, there's no shortage of new AI tools coming out every time you turn around, it seems like.
Yeah. Google swallows up a new industry every other week, it seems. If someone's been
Right.
building something for 5 years, and then Google's just like, oh yeah, we just do that for free now.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and the AI results, I have mixed feelings about that because, from what I've seen, there's good things and bad things to it. It's like they're taking so much search away from websites by just providing an answer, but people are still digging into the
Yeah.
results and clicking the links. It's just kind of different, but I still feel like there is a little bit of a loss for sure, overall with the type of websites that can perform. I mean, there's just so many informational websites. You used to be able to sell products and provide really good answers and information to, all sorts of topics that now the AI overview is just giving it away for free. And yeah,
Yeah.
some people still will click further because they want to do more research. But I mean, if you think about how many times have you asked a question and got an AI overview and been like, yeah, that's good enough to answer my question and not clicked into anything. It's like
Yeah.
how much loss is that creating for so many businesses out there? But just got to continue evolving and finding new ways to get the traffic and do things with it, I guess.
It's shocking, and I mean, yeah, the Gemini overviews are really cannibalizing a lot of
Yeah,
clicks. But every time I use AI to generate something like a recipe, which is clearly just parsing from all the recipe blogs, the recipes are really bad. So there's still, humans are still needed in some domains, right?
for
Clearly.
sure. Yeah, and I
Uh,
can tell a lot of the AI overview answers is like you're not understanding what I'm asking, or there's more I need to look into with this. I'm not satisfied with what you're telling
mhm.
me. I can tell this is pretty surface level too, So yeah, how long it'll be before that's not the case, I don't know, but time will tell, I guess.
I'm banking that we have at least until 2030 to figure things out before the whole knowledge space or the whole knowledge worker
Years.
domain is automated,
Yeah.
We got 4 good years left.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how has, just being a business owner impacted your life and just, running a business and not working for, some other big company, would you say?
Mm. Yeah. So I would say it's probably had a profoundly positive impact in ways that I didn't think it would. Like when I first started this, I was under the impression I'm sure everyone that started a business can relate to this. I had this spreadsheet where I was like, okay, I want to make $1 billion by the time I'm 35, and I just like parsed it all out by the year, and then obviously that didn't happen, right? But what did happen is I kind of have grown tremendously as a person, so much more than I think I would have if I was in a standard salary role. Now, maybe I'd be more financially happy, right? But I wouldn't understand why people buy things, how the economy works. Um, how to price something, how value works. I certainly wouldn't have grown nearly as much as a designer as I have. I feel like it was really easy when I had the corporate gig to just phone it in every day and take the paycheck. And now I'm kind of forced to evolve because my competitors are just going to eat my lunch if I don't. So yeah, profound personal growth. Maybe not as lucrative as I was hoping, but maybe that's coming in the next 5 years. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah, and at least you're, building something for yourself instead of somebody else,
There's
and
an asset, yeah.
when that does come, it's going to be, a lot more profound.
Hmm.
Do you feel like you've achieved success in your business right now, or what does that look like for you?
Uh, yeah, success to me really is having personal autonomy to do what you want when you want, um,
That's huge.
and then being having financial security, right? Those two things together, I think if you have those, you've kind of won life.
Yeah.
Um, and I'd say I'm definitely getting there, right? I definitely have. Uh, the phrase is the phrase you can be, I guess you are your own worst boss or something. I have fallen into that trap many times throughout my 13 years doing this, where I'm just like, okay, maybe I'll watch an extra hour of YouTube today, and then, oh damn, I've watched 4 hours of YouTube and I haven't been doing the outreach I need to do. So yeah, definitely getting there. I feel way more I guess proud of myself as a person than I think I would have with the salaried spot. But yeah, constantly
Yeah.
growing, constantly learning.
Yeah, you have to. You just have to, be so much more well-rounded, I feel like, to, own your own business because who's going to do the other things that you weren't focused on, before. You get so, into the weeds in a certain area, which can be good, but at the same time, like, I think it's also good, as a business owner, especially like a solopreneur to understand and hone in these other things like, closing sales and so many other
Hmm.
aspects of a business that you look at it from a different perspective that I think really makes you better at almost anything else that you're going to do in a business because you're looking at it from that angle of like, how does this all come together and make money? Whereas you're working for a corporate job, a lot of times you don't think about that. It's just like, I'm just going to do my
Yeah.
thing. Who cares if this is actually profitable in the scheme of things? I'm getting paid, so whatever, and you just overlook some things.
Oh, absolutely. The mindset shift has been really significant for me. It's really put things into perspective. And if I ever do end up in a position where I have another salary job, man, I'd be so much more appreciative of it now because I know what people are doing behind the scenes to enable me to just
Yeah,
log on, do my design stuff, and then log off, right? All the operations, all the marketing, all the sales, all the admin, all the accounting, all that stuff. It's so much,
yeah, yeah. I agree with that. I think everybody should be self-employed at least for a while because yeah, I think you would be a much better employee after seeing the other sides of
Hmm.
it. I mean, I've always felt like I had a pretty entrepreneurial mindset when it come to that sort of thing, but being self-employed has definitely opened my eyes to some aspects of like especially sales and some of these things that it's like, yeah, this is a lot of work to actually bring business in, that you don't really think of, as an employee, even if you're fairly close to that sometimes, unless you're actually doing it on a day-to-day basis for a while. I think there's a lot of stuff that you can overlook, and yeah, it can bring a new level of appreciation to what it takes to make a business successful as a whole and not just one part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That said, would you ever go back to being employed again?
If this, I mean, I don't think it would be. I don't think I could honestly say no because who knows? I could, have some horrible tragedy hit me in the next
Never say never,
year.
right?
Never say never, right? I mean, you always want to keep that back pocket. But for me, the way I phrase it is like, hey, if things don't work in the business, my worst case scenario is most people's only option. Right.
Yeah,
Worst
yeah,
case scenario, I'll go back and get a job. Most people have no idea how to make money in the world without a job, right? That skill in and of itself is
huge.
is truly valuable. Yeah.
Yeah, I just saw a quote, that was very related to what you just said the other day. That was like, your best case scenario is my worst case scenario as a solopreneur or something along
Right.
those lines. I love that. It's a really good way to look at it. And for some people, maybe that's not the case. It's their best case scenario is being employed, and that's more power to you if that's the way you feel. But it's hard
Yeah.
for me to just continue, being employed forever and not branch out and do something on my own and see where it takes me.
I would really struggle, I think, to just because it's so deeply motivating when you close a new project and then you're like, if I can find a way to deliver this in 2 weeks and really knock their socks off, and then I can close another project, I'm gonna have a record breaking month. As opposed to, all right, well, here's my $5,000 salary every 2 weeks. Okay, I guess I'll just keep. It's just totally different, you know. I feel like my dopamine circuits in my brain have been fried from entrepreneurship. It would be quite hard to go back to the drip feed salary
Yeah,
approach.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It's just so different, and it's just so much more motivating to be figuring all the things out, and making your business move forward. It's just,
Mhm.
yeah, it's hard to explain to somebody that's never tried to do it, I think.
Absolutely.
Well, let's dive back a little bit, into a couple of the things that you mentioned, in your pitch to come on the podcast. I'm really interested to hear some of your cold email tactics and a little bit more about that.
Sure, sure. All right. So I wrote down a couple of them because some of them are totally wild, and I'm like, I need to remember to talk about this one. But okay, here's my general philosophy with cold email. And I've sent probably what, like 20, 30,000 cold emails over the past decade and a half. And I have been that guy that sends the crappy cold emails that you just hate receiving. Right? I've made the mistakes, and hopefully people listening will be able to avoid making these same mistakes.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I'm talking about like sending emails that are attention grabbing above all else. It's kind of like when you're on YouTube. The general philosophy that people give you when you're making videos is that your title and thumbnail are way more important than the actual video itself. Because if no one clicks on it, they never get to see it anyway. I have the same philosophy with emails. And the subject line and the first sentence of your first follow-up email is where I'm really hitting people with like crazy stuff they've never seen before. Um, and for context, I'm emailing usually CMOs in moderate to large software companies. And I regularly, every 3 to 4 replies, will get someone saying something like, this is the most cool cold outreach I've ever seen. Here's my calendar. Book some time with me.
Yeah, real quick, you mentioned something. You said the first follow-up email. So are you talking about the first line of your second actual email to somebody?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for asking. The two big like high leverage points are the subject line itself, and then yes, the first piece of text in the body of the first follow-up email.
So more important than the very first email, do you feel?
Yes,
Okay.
by a long shot. Because like once you've got well, I guess it'll make more sense once I talk about specific kinds of emails I'm sending. But once you've got someone to open your email, in my eyes, you've kind of already solved the attention problem. So you don't really the actual content of the email is solving a different problem. But yeah, getting that click is what I'm trying to solve with the subject in the first line of the first follow up.
So
So do
now,
you want me to go through some? Sorry, go ahead.
oh, sorry. Yeah, yeah, just had a question about that. So do you pay attention to like the open rate of your first email, and does that impact your first follow-up, or will you do your follow-up basically the same whether or not you've noticed that they've opened the first sequence?
Good question. It does depend on the sequence, but more often than not, yes, the follow up is completely different. If they haven't opened up the email, I'm gonna send, excuse me, my first follow up is gonna be way weirder than if they've already opened it and I see they've probably read through the body. Because at that point, I'm still kind of this irrelevant blob in their inbox, and the goal is like to get them to click. So
Okay.
let me run through one of my campaigns real
Yeah.
quick so I can lay a layer of context here because I think it'll make a lot more sense. So I have 3 like campaigns I want to go through, but I'll start with this one because it's been like the most effective and we can maybe pick it apart for a little bit.
Awesome.
And the subject line, I've tried hundreds of different subject lines and ways of phrasing this, but it's just you always include the prospect's first name. You mess around with capitalization to throw off the way it looks in the email inbox, and you include some kind of how can you describe it? You kind of create a curiosity gap with the subject line. So one I like to use, and you might be familiar with this one, is, hey, first name, I made you a video, right? Initially, that's like, okay, what? Why did you make a video? That's strange. Who sends videos these days? It's 2025. And then but the whole purpose is like, what is this? I'm not trying to be clear about the offer. I'm just like trying to stand out.
Get that interest.
Yeah, get the interest. And when they click, the body of the email is very short, very curt, and has a thumbnail of me holding a whiteboard with their name, waving at the camera. And the tool I use for this is loom.com, which allows you to put animated GIFs in the body itself as the preview for the video. So people will see, if they don't have security blockers and stuff on their email, a picture of me holding a whiteboard with their name on it, waving at the camera, so they know that it is actually a real video that I made for them and not some generic slop you're sending to thousands of people.
Do you have any problems getting the animated GIF to go through emails, like when you're cold outreaching like that? Do you have an issue with them getting kicked back because you've got, like, an attachment or whatever in the email itself?
Yes, that is a problem, and I try and combat that in the follow-ups. So I'll talk about that a little bit more when I get to the follow-up. But yes, that is a problem, because it is kind of sketchy. Like, if you've never seen someone before and they send you a thumbnail of their face and you're just like, who is this weird part? Who's this internet stranger emailing me with my name on a whiteboard? It's a little creepy, right? So, but that's the whole point. It's like, you're trying to stand out in a sea of thousands of samey emails.
Got my attention.
Hey, there we go. I'm glad. I'm glad it still works. I've been doing this for years and years, and I talk about it on podcasts every now and then, and people don't seem to do it. I guess it is a little harder than just sending generic text, because you have to put a little bit of your soul into the email. Yeah. So, but the body of the email, very straightforward, and usually there's a PS at the bottom of the email with some bolded text with talking about something novel about either their approach or their company, or something that shows that you've put in a little bit of effort to research who you're talking to. And the PS in and of itself is, again, a pattern break to get people to look through the email, as opposed to just seeing a giant block of paragraph text and ignoring it, right?
Yeah.
And then the first follow-up email, generally speaking, I mean, you know what the typical follow-up is like. Hey, I'm just checking on what's going on, or hey, Ryan, have you seen this email yet? Right?
Yeah.
Your brain is just programmed to block that out. So you're not. It's totally useless.
There's so many of them. Yeah.
Sorry.
You just see so many emails like that.
Yeah.
This day and age.
Every single follow-up email is like that. So instead of doing that, I like to do, again, just go straight into pattern breaks. Try and say things in the first line of the email that are just like things you would never expect someone to say to you via email. Now, you can, of course, go off the deep end here and be really rude. I've done that. It gets opens, it gets replies. It doesn't get the replies you want, but it does work. So particularly if you're emailing executives that are used to like high status email behavior, where they're just sending one-line emails to their team, you can hit them with the thoughts ? And oh my God, that works so well. But you're pissing them off. So that you live by the sword, you die by the sword.
Fine line there, yeah.
Yeah. The thoughts ? Yeah, it's so obnoxious. But I'll say things like really short, really curt, to the point. Don't even use their name, because you've got their name in the subject line. It's probably in the body of the email. Just be like, any interest here, or am I screaming into the void here, or something funny or atypical that is, again, the intent is, what is this guy? What's going on? Let me just see what this guy's all about. If they've already opened the email, I default to the standard patterns, right? Like, and instead of any interest here, I'll say something like, seems like there might be a timing issue here, or something, just to imply that I'm aware that they might be somewhat interested, but they're just not in a position to take action right then and there. And then if they don't respond to that, I reduce the follow-up cadence by like a really significant amount. I'm talking 2 weeks, and then I'll hit them with one more, just closing the file type email. Seems like there's no interest here. I'll leave you alone. That email has a really strong chance of getting them to reply if they were ever going to reply, versus any of the other copy I've tried. But anyway, I've been rambling for like 10 minutes now. Hopefully that was clear for anyone, just with the audio there.
Interested in becoming a guest, sponsoring episodes, or have suggestions for the show? Check out our website at BizGrowMojo.com. Also, you can sign up for our newsletter where you'll get updates about upcoming episodes and guests, special offers, insights and breakdowns from previous episodes, as well as marketing and business tips you can apply to your own business. Go to bizgrowmojo.com/newsletter.
Yeah, no, I think it's very interesting. Just hearing a little bit more about, the specific tactic. Are there any other, types of messaging or, other things that you found that you kind of use maybe as a secondary? It sounds like this might be kind of, one of your primary strategies. Have you found another method that you feel like works well?
I have, and it's worth noting that the video email thing is very hard to do at scale. I really only do it in situations where I know that the person I'm emailing can take action in the short term. I'm not emailing like mass market campaigns this way because it's just a waste of time. And strategic projects don't get done because you send someone a funny email. They have to be like provisioned budget and everything. So the other things I try are just kind of crazy, right? Like, I used to when I first started this, I would send the generic emails, like you use your name and then the little carrots and then their name and you say collaboration or something. And that's moderately effective. But what I found works way better is kind of fitting a completely unrelated but interesting narrative into the email itself. So for example, in 2020, I was living in an apartment in the middle of, well, I live in Atlanta, so there's a lot of wildlife in the area. And a squirrel somehow made it into my attic and was like chewing my router to pieces. And it was a total nightmare scenario for like 2 weeks. And I'm like, okay, my internet is going to be completely cooked once he gets through the mainframe. How can I make the most of this? So I documented myself trying to go into my attic and retrieving him, and it was just like a series of 5 really interesting pictures of me trying to retrieve this squirrel. And then I just used it in an email campaign, and I sent it to like freaking CMOs of like companies with thousands of employees, and the subject line was, "Hey, first name, I'm trapped with a squirrel here." And like, if you ever receive an email like that, it's just it's such a strong pattern break because you just don't receive emails like that,
It's just so random, yeah.
You're just gonna think, what the
attention.
Heck? Exactly that, and that's the whole point. And the body of the email was just a picture of me like wrestling with it wasn't actually wrestling, but it was a series of pictures of me trying to retrieve the squirrel. And the pitch was like, maybe if you hire me, I can afford an exterminator or something. I don't remember the specifics of the body, but you just pivot inside the copy of the email to your offer, right? So, just something totally off the wall. Something that if you received an email that had that subject line, you would 100% open it, like 100%. You just to see what it is. That's a good subject line. And I have a couple other crazy ones as well, but that's like my main one. I revive that every couple of years to see if it still works, but it feels a little strange because it's definitely not as effective because the whole premise was like we're in this mutually shared lockdown situation in COVID.
Oh, yeah.
So I literally can't leave my house and I'm living with this rodent. So there's not that same like camaraderie there that there was with the campaign initially. But it gets, I think I had like a 50% reply rate on that campaign. It was wild. Most of the replies were just kind of laughing though. It wasn't like serious replies. They were just like, this is funny outreach.
You got their attention though.
Got their attention. But now it's like 30%. It's like it's way lower and definitely not as positive of feedback as I was getting in the good old era of COVID. Yeah.
Still pretty good rate of response for cold email though. I got to ask, as far as making videos goes, how do you scale? Because it seems like it would be incredibly time consuming to do a video for every person that you're reaching out to. But maybe that's the difference, is the response and conversion rate is so much higher that, you throw out doing mass campaigns for this. But I'm just curious, like, it seems like it would be hard to get very many emails out without spending a ton of time on it. How do you balance that?
Yeah, I mean, to be totally transparent, my answer is I don't. I just I can't scale the video stuff, and it's because I can't scale it that it's so effective. And because I know I can't scale it, I have to be very judicious about who I'm emailing. For instance, when I send you the email, I'm thinking this is I think I could really knock a podcast chat out the park. It seems like Ryan could take action on it in the next couple of weeks. Let's go for it. Let's see if there's a good fit. As opposed to just like going through Apple Podcasts and boom, 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 sending an email to every single person.
It's really more about just super targeted outreach and who you're going to reach out to begin with, and doing the research and knowing that it's somebody that you can probably work with anyway, and that sort of thing, as opposed to trying to build any real scale to it. It sounds like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's that's a bit of a problem, right? Like you scaled an agency, you know how hard it is to go from solo to having a team to having a large team. And you need some way to automate marketing. That's why I pivoted to YouTube, because I was thinking, okay, the video outreach thing, I can manage it solo and it works for me, but I need leverage in order to eventually hire people, or just scale my fees, or make more income than like a standard employee's freelance.
Yeah, well, it's definitely interesting. I think a lot of people could utilize it. I feel like I could probably utilize it. And I've been kind of playing with some similar ideas, not quite, exactly down that road. But I like the idea of doing like the, pretty targeted outreach, because yeah, you can scale stuff, but then you have, more problems with emails bouncing and, all these other things that come into play that I feel like you end up spending time on versus dialing it in more. You have less of those type of problems, and you have less emails that you're going to have to scrape or get a hold of in some way, and that sort of thing. So it's just kind of like, pick your heart, I guess.
Yeah, pick the problems that you want. And yeah, I've played around with automating cold email. At least in my experience, it's a nightmare, especially if you're trying to automate the first email. It's just, you're talking sub 5% open or reply rates, like sub 20% opens. Even with the really novel stuff, I don't know. There's just something about it when you decide to use automation. There's a meaningful shift in your strategy that I think recipients can sense.
Yeah, I think so too. I agree. Well, you mentioned your YouTube channel. That's another thing I'd like to get into a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Tell me more about that. How did you, sounds like, I think if I remember right, you said you've got like 5,000 subscribers. How did you even get to that point where you've got 5,000 subscribers? Tell me a little bit about that.
All right, here's the YouTube secret for anyone that wants to grow on YouTube. If you want to even have a chance at succeeding, you must commit to one upload every single week for 3 years, and you can't miss a single week.
Wow.
That's the price of entry nowadays. If you can do that, you will succeed on YouTube. And 3 years in particular is a very specific and intentional time horizon, because I think, in my opinion, it's just about as long as you need to learn how to do it right, plus how long the algorithm needs to figure out how to promote your content, plus an extra year for just random chaos and nonsense that happens when you're on a crazy journey like this. So that's what I did. I just constant uploads, nonstop uploads for 3 years, every single week. And it wasn't until the 2-year mark that I had my first even remotely high volume video, right? I mean, I'm talking every single video was sub 1,000 views, and then boom, 100,000 views. And then from there it was, pretty moderate across the board.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I got there. Still have a lot to learn, and still need to keep going. there's, I guess we can get into this, but there's been a little bit of a problem with too much success from YouTube that we can jump into that's caused me to slow down my cadence. But yeah, it's a struggle. Going the distance is very hard.
Yeah, I think so many people underestimate that, when they try to do anything with social media, just they underestimate how much it actually takes to get to the point where you actually are building an audience and the algorithms stop hindering you and actually help you, because I think
Yeah.
that at this point most of the algorithms are really designed to hinder anybody from getting very much reach that they're not paying for it until you've just been there for so long that they're like, okay, this guy's not going anywhere. We'll let him reach out there. Or maybe, once you paid for enough advertising at a certain point, they'll unlock those floodgates a little bit. I'm not sure, but yeah, I've seen that problem. It's difficult to grow any sort of an audience on any of these platforms. I think at this point, it's like the whole goal is to monetize them. So, they open the gates enough for people to get interested and find an opportunity. And then as soon as they figure out how to monetize that, then they lock it down.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the way it goes.
Yep. Well, yeah. Tell me a little bit about some of the problems that you found from, having some successful videos.
Oh, well, yeah, the problem I had, this is pretty typical freelancer problem, right? So I was uploading very consistently 3 years, every single week. I went through the pit of despair for about a year and a half of posting my videos and getting nothing. And then, like you said, the algorithm kind of realizes eventually, okay, this guy's pretty stubborn. He's probably a safe bet. Let's show him some love. And then I had a couple of viral videos back to back, and I got a bunch of client work, and I was able to close about $105,000 worth of client projects from that. But I ended up getting flooded with work at the same time. So I was in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to service all these projects. And then typical freelancer, I stopped marketing because I'm just like, I need to service these clients. And then 6 months later, I'm like, oh no, my pipeline is completely dry. My pipeline is completely dry. So now I have a system in place where I'm constantly doing marketing every single week. The YouTube videos, they're getting edited. I have an editor helping me now. I have some AI tools helping me to do a lot of the rote, boring stuff. And I just had to come to terms with the fact that it's not acceptable to be spending 30 hours on a YouTube video every week. If I'm growing a business, I have to be able to do marketing during the week, not on the weekend, right? All my video work was being done on the weekends, and I just didn't have a weekend for almost 3 years. And that's just not practical for a human being. So
at some point, yeah, it's going to become unsustainable.
yeah. Yeah, it just doesn't work for a very long period of time, and that's what it takes to really succeed on YouTube. You have to commit to doing it on a time scale of years. Otherwise, like you said, your content the algorithm doesn't care. You're a nobody until you've been on the platform for a couple of years. So, yeah, a little bit of suffering from success, but also suffering from just a lack of a good system for building the business. I don't know if you've ever, if you're familiar with the book, the E-Myth. Have you read that before?
I've heard of it. I haven't read it.
It's such an amazing book because it basically describes the problem that I ran into almost exactly. Someone is good at a task or good at some kind of service, and then they think they can launch a business around that service, and then they realize they don't know how to run a business, and then they just run into all sorts of problems. I read that book back in, I think, 2014 when I first started, and I was thinking, I'm not going to make any of these problems. Proceeded to make every single problem in the book. I could create every single problem in that book. Oh my gosh, it's typical.
Yeah, I think it's easy to underestimate, what it takes to actually run a business until you dive in. But yeah, how do you find out if you don't dive in?
Exactly. Yeah, you learn a lot about yourself.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about what your YouTube channel, is about. What do you talk about typically on there? What have you found success with topics and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so the whole premise of the channel is kind of to just document what I was already doing in my freelance business, and then repurpose it as content. So the channel is about designing really complex software interfaces and how that actually works. Because I think a lot of people, well, maybe not a lot of people, but people that haven't had very much design experience will often think, oh, I don't know how to do design. I'm not talented. I'm not creative enough. But interface design in particular is very formulaic. You're just following rules of the visual hierarchy and font weights and using clever tricks with color to pull visual attention. And the whole purpose of that channel is to show people how to do that. So each video is me redesigning a popular interface like Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, something that most people have heard about, and just walking through exactly what I'm doing. And I found that was useful in two ways, because it made me a better designer. Every week I'm having to do some new redesign task. But also I kind of realized that even though my videos were only getting a couple thousand views, the algorithm was giving it to the exact people that were interested in it, which just so happens to be my ideal client profile, right? These are software company, usually head of design or CMOs, that are struggling with some sort of business problem because their interface sucks and they're looking for solutions. And that's why I'm a big proponent of like jumping into the social algorithms if you're a small business owner, because they really know people very well. Even if your content only gets a handful of views, it's probably very targeted views, very high buying intent. So yeah, I've only got like 5,000 subscribers, but I've closed quite a lot of revenue from these from the YouTube channel, and it's been shocking to me. I was genuinely had a worldview shift when that started happening. Yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah. Now you do a lot of conversion optimization for your clients and that sort of thing, right?
yeah, that's been my bread and butter. At least I think I'm pivoting now to more complex software stuff. But yeah, the main core problem I solve for people with marketing websites is there's not enough people doing the thing I want them to do on this landing page. How do I make them do it?
Awesome. Yeah, let's jump into that just a little bit. I got a couple questions around that.
Sure.
What are some of the most common mistakes you see people make with their landing pages? I think this would be super beneficial for the audience to be able to hear that and maybe, utilize it to steer clear of some of those issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And the good news is the most damning mistakes are easily fixable. Even if you're using something like Squarespace, right? You just need to get a few things right, and you're probably fine. The biggest mistake by far, the most damning one, that's just going to cause people to drop left and right, is not clearly communicating the problem you solve or the reason why someone should care immediately upon visiting the site. And this implies several things. It means your site needs to load almost instantly, because especially nowadays, no one's sitting around for 5-6 seconds for your logo to spin around while your content renders. You need extremely clear copy with like less than 10 words in the homepage hero, and you need some sort of compelling emotional imagery to get people to continue to move down the page. Those are the main things. If you can get those right, everything else usually helps it or usually fixes itself. But when people come to me with conversion problems, that's always the first thing I come to. Like, how can you explain what's uniquely valuable about your business in less than 10 words? Just put that as your homepage hero. Then you can get into all the other stuff like social proof or a sense of urgency, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Are there any other low-hanging fruits you can think of that, I mean, you kind of went through some of them right there, but just out of curiosity, is there any other no-brainers that's like, hey, you really should have like testimonials right below this, or just things that you see work really well that you don't see a lot of people doing?
Sure. Well, anytime you're asking let me just go through them a little more in a more cohesive way, actually. The first thing, after we get the homepage hero sorted, I often recommend that companies will try to lower the activation energy required for the landing page. So this is actually a problem I have with my landing page, where the call to action is book a discovery call. And you might think, okay, well, it's free, but there's a lot of emotional energy required to book a discovery call with someone. So I'm currently pivoting my site to just give people the ability to type their landing page URL into my website and just have an automatic site scanner, give them free recommendations. In exchange, they sign up for my email marketing newsletter. So there's probably some creative way that most business owners can just give free value for free, genuinely for free, usually with an email exchange, instead of asking them to book a demo or something, right? So reframing your offer to low activation energy so you can get more people into your funnel in the first place. Not obviously. This is definitely not obvious. Most landing pages have way too much text on them. They're written like they're an article, right? And I don't know about you, but whenever I'm browsing a landing page, I'm scanning. I'm looking at the headers. I'm looking at the imagery, the iconography, the buttons. I'm not reading the body text. So whenever I'm consulting with clients, most of the work is just me fighting with them to just say, look, we can't have a paragraph here. It needs to be less than 12 words. And it's so funny because when you're building the product, you're like, but there's so much value. They need to understand. The point of a good landing page is you have to communicate that value without just writing a paragraph of text. You have to communicate it visually. You communicate it subconsciously with your brand. And then, testimonials nearby any call to action so that you reassure people that like you're not just some fly by the night practitioner. You're a real business with other happy humans that have used your product. And those are the big things. We already kind of touched on performance. Getting the site speed loading quickly is like that's low hanging fruit that you just got to do that. There's no excuse. I think that pretty much those are like the big bang for your buck things. Everything else is like way too nuanced for people to like implement on their own. But they generally don't need that unless they're trying to squeeze out an extra 0.1% on a high volume landing page or something.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about, getting to the point with landing pages. And, that's always kind of a struggle when it comes to like search engine optimization because, the landing page a lot of times isn't going to perform in search results with less words. So it's, there's that balance of trying to figure out a way to like kind of build a search landing page that then forward somebody to a page that's really trying to close them. You got to kind of think about that funnel and that process a little bit different. But yeah, no, that's good points because there's always kind of like this internal battle. I feel like with a lot of search engine optimization specialists where they're trying to get the content to perform, but then they're like, well, this isn't getting to the point very well either. Now I need to figure out how to do that and appease both the algorithm and the person that's landing there to actually get them to do something and take that desired action. Yeah, but there's definitely ways to do it.
It's such a challenge. And there's more robots than humans browsing the internet these days anyway.
No doubt.
So do you really want to optimize for humans anymore? I don't know.
At some point you have to, but I think you kind of got to optimize for the bots and the algorithms first because those people aren't going to convert. They never get to your website to begin with, Unless you got another way that you're bringing them in, then you don't need to worry about that. If you're taking them from an ad to a landing page, then all the search engine optimization rules are out the door because now you can just focus on converting that person and how they're getting there, and it's it's not through search. So exactly. Always a different scenario for every situation, I guess.
Yeah, most of my clients are paid search landing pages.
Okay, gotcha.
And I'm doing a little bit of I'm eating my own dog food, trying to do some of this stuff for my own funnel on YouTube now. So I guess I'll see how that turns out in the next 3 months.
It's always good when you can, apply what you're doing to yourself. And that's one thing that, I've done search engine optimization for a lot of businesses for a lot of years now, but it's tricky for myself because it's probably the most competitive space I could do it in, competing with other agencies that do this. Trying to show up, it's almost not even an option because I'm trying to compete nationally, with other agencies that are doing this for all these other businesses. So it's like the most difficult possible scenario you could find yourself in to actually apply what I like to do for people to my own business. So I have to, get a little bit creative and find some other methods too while I'm letting that build on itself, so.
Oh, absolutely. And especially these days, you've got agencies using, programmatic SEO stuff where they're just churning out thousands of search engine pages every day, like there's so much gray hat stuff going on.
Oh yeah.
It's like,
Oh,
how do
yeah.
you succeed as like a virtuous search engine person? It's,
Yeah.
I don't envy you.
It's fun, but it's definitely a challenge for sure. But who I typically focus on is more in local markets, and we're not dealing with anywhere near that level of competition for the clients that I work with. It's more like local service based typically rather than national campaigns. So it's kind of another ballgame, and it's much more approachable and doable to compete in those areas.
Interesting. Yeah, I've considered local myself, but man, even local, it's so cutthroat.
Yeah, it can be, especially in competitive industries like personal injury lawyers. I work for a lot of them, and it's insane in some of the big markets how much they're willing to spend to compete. Because they have to with other people. They're spending tens of $1,000s a month to show up in prominently in Vegas or LA or something like that. But at the same
Right.
time, when they show up first page, it's amazing what it can do for their business. What I've seen, some of these attorneys being able to achieve, and in different industries as well. But that's just one of the most competitive ones that I've seen.
That's wild. Sounds like what you're telling me is if I want to succeed in search engine, I just need to move to the middle of nowhere and then just own the market, own the
You're going to have a lot less people, coming to your site too. So
Yeah.
it's hard to find that balance sometimes as well. Well, Mark, it's been really good talking with you. You answered a lot of really good questions. Just a couple more before we kind of wrap things up here, and
Sure.
give you a chance to talk about anything else that you wanted to wrap up maybe too. But what's one marketing tip you think all business owners need to know, and you feel like you would love to have learned earlier on in your your progress here with your own business?
Yeah. I think I really, and this is probably a product from growing up in the generation I grew up in, I really discounted the value of compounding effort over a very long period of time. Like when I first started, the reason I got into cold email is the prospect of having someone respond to you the same day and then, book you the following week. But what I've learned with YouTube and pretty much every other platform I've tried to grow, it seems to be the people that win. They do two things. They build a system that works for them, that they can rely on, so they're not constantly, tapped for motivation. And then two, they just do little things every single day for extraordinary long periods of time, as opposed to really intense Herculean efforts for a month. And maybe this is a guy thing. I prefer doing the Herculean stuff. I feel like a hero, but then I'm burnt out and I'm useless. So if I could talk to old me or young me, I would say, hey man, chill out. Just send like one email a day for 3 years or something, as opposed to 100 emails a day for a month.
Yeah, I can really appreciate that, because I think that applies a lot to what I do with search engine optimization. People don't realize that you're not going to have a brand new site that's going to show up number one in a competitive market in a month, because it's kind of like YouTube. Google is learning what your business is about and learning where you fit in, and it just takes a few months for them to even start to understand that. And they're just not going to show your business for several months of actually doing the work and putting the effort in. It's going to take a little while for the algorithm to understand and actually start to show the business prominently, especially.
Yeah, that's it's a truth in pretty much every pursuit worthwhile pursuing, right? You gotta go the distance.
Yep, absolutely. Great advice. Any advice for listeners that maybe are looking to get into a similar business like you do?
Ooh, that's a doozy. I talk at these. There's a couple of like local design camps here in Atlanta, and I'll do little presentations for them all the time. I think if I'm speaking directly to someone who's in the design realm and wants to build like a freelance career or start their own agency, I always encourage people to. Of course, you're a good designer, and that's the important first step. But you really have to learn how to grow a business. You need to learn sales and marketing. In particular, you need to learn marketing. The thing I tell the little fledgling designers that are starting their careers is nothing else matters if you have a healthy pipeline of of quality clients, because you don't need to be good at sales. There's always someone else in the pipeline to try, and eventually you'll learn. You don't need to be a good designer, because you don't really need the referrals if you have a constant inbound supply. And there's something else, but marketing seems to be the big differentiator. If you know how to do marketing, you will succeed in this space. And it doesn't matter if you're the best designer in the world. No one cares if they don't know who you are.
Yeah, that's good. That's good advice. Any last thoughts? Anything else you wanted to cover?
Nothing. I wrote down a big list of things I was going to say, but you've been so thorough. I think we've knocked everything out here. I appreciate it. That's just about everything I wanted to talk about. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it as well, Mark. You had a lot of really good advice. I think this is going to make for a great episode. I really appreciate you reaching out to come on the podcast, and I think it's been a really good conversation. Where can people go to learn more about you and your business and connect with you?
If you guys want to see some of my more crazy experiments and stuff, you can go to marcmcdougall.com. That's MarcMcDougall.com. Weird name, half French, half Scottish. And I've got a bunch of ramblings on there, a couple more podcasts, and a little newsletter with some cool stuff too.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, Mark. It's been a really good time. Thanks for coming on, and best of luck with all your efforts in your business moving forward, and look forward to speaking again soon, hopefully.
Thanks, Ryan. Been a pleasure.
You've been listening to the BizGrowMojo podcast with Ryan Amon. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on the BizGrowMojo podcast.